Alright, we're back with Turn-Based Combat Episode 4. A bit of a delay between parts, but had some stuff come up. But anyways, let's dive right back in. I have made a couple changes off camera, just because they're not really needed to be well, actually some of them are, but like I was just kind of making changes and fixed some bugs. But the first thing you'll notice, of course, is I replaced the sprite in the background. I just made this really quickly in Photoshop, but I figured that you guys would have better art or assets ready for stuff, but just to make it look a little more palatable. The other thing was I fixed the animator. The way I did it before was absolutely atrocious, so I went ahead and redid that. All I've done is instead of having the three booleans here, I've turned them all into triggers. And then for each state, I just go from any state, create a transition that is dependent on this condition, or yeah, the respective condition, unselected, selected, or pressed. And make sure in the settings that they cannot transition to self, so this is unchecked. And for yeah, then for this transition right here, just make sure that idle is a looping animation, otherwise it'll just pause once it gets to the end here. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've done on the animator side. On the script side, I have done a couple of other things. First off, there was a bug where I forgot to check if there's actually input before changing the index. Instead, it would just go through this loop every time. So I just moved the float vertical line out to outside the if statement, and then just check if the absolute value is greater than 0.1. And then the other thing was in the menu option, I've gone ahead and changed the boolean stuff to trigger stuff. So instead of set bool, it's now set trigger and reset trigger. It's a little bit cleaner to read, there's less lines, and of course, it works. Yeah, I went ahead and redid the animations as well, a little bit, just so they fit with the new artwork, and I've adjusted its position and stuff, but again, I'm going to leave most of the aesthetic tweaking outside of the tutorial because that's something that's highly dependent on each game. But yeah, anyways, this episode we're going to be going ahead and filling out, or trying to get started on filling out this player phase part. Now there's multiple ways you could do this, and in fact the way I'd suggest is having nested menus. So for each character you have like attack, run, or use item, and then once they hit attack it pops up a menu with all of these moves in it. I'm going to ignore doing all of that for now, which is why I also have this flee move type, just so we can do that. Maybe like use item could be in here too, but I'm not going to worry about that. But that's just what I decided when I first started this, so this wouldn't go too long of a tutorial series. But of course, if that's requested, I may do like an addition or like a sequel to this tutorial series where I go back and add that in. It shouldn't take too long, but still something I wanted to cut out. Okay, so yeah, for the player phase, we're gonna need to basically instantiate a button for each move into some sort of container. That'll lay them out really nicely, and then once the player inputs a move, we basically pass that off to the play move coroutine, just as we've done with the enemy phase. And one thing we can do here is just debug.log player dot, I didn't get the name, did I? That's fine. We'll just get the player dot stats dot name, played on, and then I guess we can just do like the first for now. This is just a debug message for us, so it doesn't really matter. Stats.name. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this right now is just so we can see that this enemy phase is working. I realized I forgot to do that last time. But if we go ahead and check in the console, the player phase will basically be instantly over, and then the oh yeah, and let me go ahead These are saved as prefabs, and let's go ahead and apply all because these are the prefabs that I want. And that'll be there. I guess I shouldn't do that. Anyways, yeah, we'll figure this out in a moment. But we're looking for this, right? And let's see, we also need to start the turn combat somehow. For now, I'll just put that in start, I guess. So void start, and we'll just say start turn combat. I guess we need the players and enemies as well, huh? Alright, let's make a method to test these then. Let's go ahead and also create a public combatant stats array for players and enemies. This will just be for debug. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna, instead of doing this in start, we'll do it as a test combat, and we can do context menu and test combat. So what this will do is we can now right click on the object and test the combat that way without having to have it happen every time we start the game. And then this way we can like remove this later if we're trying to test other stuff, or we can use this later if we're trying to test other stuff and have a different start function. So for this, all we're gonna do is just start turn combat with players and enemies, and then we can go back in here, and let me go ahead and rename all of these to yeah. We're also going to go ahead and select the turn combat manager, lock it, and then drag those into the players and drag these into the enemies. Cool. So now we have those. So now if we hit start, absolutely nothing happens. I feel like I shouldn't be wasting this much time on this, but anyways, while in combat, I guess I should like have messages. For us to, oh, I'm an idiot. I mean, I literally just was talking about this, but the way we start the combat is we go on here. We don't. It doesn't just start automatically. We go and hit test combat, and that'll give us or that'll start our combat. Now, the reason this is throwing an error is, of course, because I forgot to make these lists, or these new, yeah, these new lists. I forgot to actually instantiate them, so my bad. Wait, am I? Hold on. This is what it's supposed to. Oh, right. This dot. Sometimes I forget why I decided to be a programmer. Okay. That should fix that though. And testing frequently throughout writing stuff is honestly the best way to just find bugs. Again, another one. Like, I didn't test at all in the past few episodes, and I figured I should use this one to do it. Yeah, new list of combatants. Okay. And let's try this again. There we go. And this is going to continue happening because we haven't actually told it to... We haven't actually told it to subtract health or anything, so they're constantly going to be attacking. But yeah, that seems to be working pretty well. Cool. So now we can get started on our players themselves. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna unlock this, and so our canvas here has this this menu option holder, and so what I'm thinking we should do is make this sort of be centered around the character that's currently moving. So what I'm gonna do is instead of having this world canvas, or yeah, this screen overlay canvas, we're going to try and make it world space. That'll of course move it way off to who knows where. Let's go ahead and reset that. And of course we can reset the width and height. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in the scene. First off, let's scale it down. Okay, looking a little bit better. Get out of 2D mode as well, that would help. There it is. So the players are here, so let's go ahead and rotate it as well. Okay, and then go ahead and move it up. Continue scaling it down a little bit. So now, actually we might want a little bit bigger. But yeah, we can like attempt to see what it looks like. And I'm realizing now that black is kind of a bad color for the background because you can't see the like things, but that's okay. Whatever. It doesn't exactly matter. Okay, so we have our oh, another thing I changed was the input speed to 0.3. I just realized that now, but yeah, so let's go ahead and rather than just having these be here, let's go ahead and create an empty object, and this will be our options holder. And we want this to, yeah, there we go, now we can see it. We want this to be pretty tall. That's that's width. Let's keep the width at 300. And then let's make the height like, what's 100 times 4 is 400 plus like, so let's give it about 800. And let's give it a vertical layout group. This is kind of a lazy way of doing it. Ideally you'd want to like actually position these and then have them like have positions that they spawn into. And of course this won't work if there are more than like 4 or 5 moves. And in that case you'd want to implement something different, like a scrolling set, or I don't know, something. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna take these options and make them children, so that we get nice spacing. And then you'll see if we duplicate these, it automatically spaces out, which is pretty neat. Now I think 800 was a little too tall, so let's go ahead and bump that down. Say 600 is good. Let's also rotate it a little bit, and so we can take a look in the game view to see how this sort of looks. Yeah, I'd say that's actually what we should do. Is we should find player 1 and copy its position. So that 7.12. And then what was the other one? It's 2.77. So the reason we are doing it this way is so that the offset is consistent. Yeah. So yeah, we can make the offset consistent for each player. So now if the yeah, if this is over here now, then it's basically in the same place as the other things. Okay. Let's go ahead and make that in. Let's make the order in layer 10. Okay, and I think that should be good. Now we're gonna have to figure out something for when characters block the way of the canvas, and in fact, now that's making me want to go back to screen space overlay. But let's not do that. Did it just reset the position? God damn it. Okay, well, this was like 0.77. We're gonna have to like fix all of that again, but that's okay. 7.12. Had the numbers, but in the wrong order. Okay, and then we scale it down. And rotate. So just make that -90. Okay. Oh wait, I'm not supposed to be moving these, right? Okay. Yeah, a little bit of a detour there, but that's okay. So we have our 4 moves. So we can actually get rid of these now. And then what we can do is get a reference to our, I guess we could just make this a prefab. So let's go ahead and do that. And we should actually put that in the resources, not prefabs. That's okay, I'll just make a folder for that. So with resources you can load them in dynamically. Is nice. And let's go ahead and put that into resources. And it was battle menu manager. Okay. So yeah. So we're gonna create a game object, battle menu, and then in start, we're gonna go ahead and get a reference to that. So we'll say battle menu is equal to resources load, and we're gonna load the battle menu manager. Make sure that's spelled exactly as the prefab is named. As a game object. And actually we should go ahead and make this a battle for combat. What do we call it? Combat menu manager? Yeah. As game object, then we can just do a .get component. Okay, so now that we have access to that, yeah, so now we have access to that, and so once we start the player phase, we can go ahead and fill all of that out. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to create a reference to our holder, and this will be the battle menu .transform get child 0. There's only one child. And then we're going to do holder dot for int I equals holder dot child count -1. I is greater than or equal to 0. I minus minus. we're gonna basically clear all of its children. So holder dot get child I, and destroy. Okay. Okay, yeah, so we've destroyed all the children, and I think, yeah, so child count -1, so if there's one child, then it just gets that. There are more than that. Alright, yeah, that works. Okay. So we've cleared all of the children, and now we need to instantiate all of the children that we'll need. So we're gonna also need a reference to our menu button. So I'm gonna go up here and create a public, actually, what we can do in here is, yeah, we'll create a public, actually no we won't. Hold on. So I realized we needed to instantiate this for this to actually work, so we need to instantiate that game object, and then we can get what we need from it. And that'll allow us to also have working references like the folder and stuff. But what we're going to do in here is we're going to create a public game object, menu option prefab. Now we could do this the same way, like load it through resources, but I think this way will allow us to separate things a little bit more. So if we go back into here, and in here, wait for this to update. Oh, I didn't save. Oops. Gotta save. Alright, yeah, there we go. So now we can just choose the menu option prefab. And then we have access to it in our Turn Combat Manager just by virtue of the battle menu. So let's go. Let's see. We got yeah. So 4 int I equals. I guess we could do a for each for this. For each combat move in player dot moves or dot stats dot moves. We're gonna create a so we're gonna instantiate a battle menu dot menu option prefab. We're gonna instantiate it with the option with the holder as the parent, and this will be our yeah. So game object option. We're gonna need to do a little bit more work here, but that's okay. So we have our option, and so we need to change our options text, and we need to assign it some holders as well, or we need to assign it some listeners as well for like when it's clicked, what move to play. Okay. Yeah, so let's see. I don't know how long I've been recording, but let's go ahead and change the name of the text, make sure that works, and then we'll call it an episode there. And then the next episode we'll go ahead and fill the rest of the stuff out to actually get it to send all the relevant information to play move. So if you go back and look at our menu option prefab, well, I guess we'll have to drag it in here to look. But it has a background and the move name. So all we really need to change is, a reference to this menu option, yeah, this menu option script, as well as the name, I think it's a TextMesh Pro, right? We fold it out again. Yeah, TextMesh Pro. Okay. So really quickly, let's go ahead and create menu option. Guess let's rename this to menu option, and then we'll call this the option, because we're going to be using that a lot more than we will be menu option. So menu option, get component. That's why menu option get component. Menu option, and we will also need we need text mesh, right? So up here we'll be using TM Pro, which is the namespace for text mesh pro stuff. Text is equal to menu option get component in children, text mesh pro UGUI, and then text.text is equal to what is it equal to? It's equal to the move.name. Okay, and then I'm going to change this to wait for seconds just so we can see this is actually happening. Another thing we'll need to do is we'll need to set the battle menu .transform.position equal to the player.stats.transform.position, which I think should work the way we want. Of course, yeah, so that's sitting somewhere. But if we go ahead and we then start the combat. Okay, well, let's pause here. So player 2 has 4 moves, but that's why. So none of them have names, which is why these are blank. But yeah, we can actually select through these. Can't destroy. Ah, that's why. Okay. Dot game object. So that's where we're getting the errors from. So it was trying to destroy the component but failing, which is why that wasn't clearing. But if we go ahead and hit test combat, there we go. And yeah, the other ones don't have names, which is why they're showing up as empty, but you can see that they were there. And they are showing up pretty much exactly where we want them. So that's cool. I guess I'll give these names off screen so we don't run into that again, but for now, we have that working, so I'm gonna call it I'm gonna call the episode there. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you see the next part.